defense, but you give no examples of how the defense was inadequate. You just say that it was. Assertions that are made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence, and you provided none. You didn't even provide a single example of how the defense itself
I
was
can give you
inadequate.
the
Hang on,
example.
hang on, hang on. I
You
did
asked me
interrupt.
for the
I did
example.
interrupt you once. Just let me
It's
say
fine.
what I need.
Let him land, and then you got it, Tess.
And then I promise I'll let you say whatever you need to, right? So I want to hear out what you have to say, but I'm going to also make my adamant defenses here. So you didn't provide any adequate or any examples of inadequate defense. That's the first thing. The second thing is when you're talking about self defense itself, you say he put his hands on him. You do realize that in most states you have some sort of escalation policy which occurs, which means that you have to have some sort of clear and present danger.
All right, y'all. We are back on Go. We got Andrew Wilson debating Taz the GOAT as well as the panel on Karmelo Anthony trial, the witnesses' inconsistencies in the statements. Did their statements that they made initially change from the testimonies that they gave while at the Karmelo trial? Let's get right into it. And make sure y'all hitting that like button, subscribe to OotaOnGo, and make sure you hit the notification bells, man, because this one is going to be spicy.
Policy which occurs, which means that you have to have some sort of clear and present danger to your life. Karmelo Anthony himself and the witnesses there seem to think that that was not the case at all, that it did not justify pulling out a folding knife and stabbing him in the chest. If I were to say that he pulled out a gun and shot him in the chest after it was the case that he got shoved, would you say that that was equally justified?
The laws need to demonstrate what actually happened, again, which is a young man who sat there and was aggressed by another young man, responded to being pushed. And so those examples you're looking for, one of them would be this idea that Karmelo called all of them pussies, but when he was questioned on cross-examination, that wasn't in any 2025 reporting. There is nothing that denoted that Karmelo Anthony was an aggressor in any of the early reports. So these newfound stories and testimonies that we see in 2026, those are inconsistencies that were dealt with inadequately by the defense. Now, if you wanted me to give you the examples of inadequacies, I could have. Don't just imply that I didn't. I was just giving you an opening statement.
Okay, but you didn't, and now you've given me one, and yet
would you like another? Would you like another?
Under the witness statement? Well, let's refute one at a time. Okay. Under the witness statement of the provocation, the witness stated that after Anthony was repeatedly asked to leave the Memorial High School tent during the rain day, he refused, became hostile, saying, "I'm not leaving. Fuck you all." The slur, witnesses say that he then called the surrounding student athletes a bunch of pussies who were not going to do nothing about it. That's what the witness testimony showed that came out in the trial. So that is what the evidence is that we have on record. I don't know what evidence you're referring to because it sounds like, hang on, almost done. And then I promise you can respond. And then secondarily, you didn't actually answer my question. What would be the distinction had he been there with a Glock concealed and then this guy shoved him in the shoulder, he pulled out the Glock and shot him in the chest? Why would that be a distinction in your mind?
So I want to make sure we're doing this one at a time. So let's deal with what you just read. What you just read, again, was debunked on cross-examination because until you show me something from 2025 that says Karmelo said these things, this is new testimony as highlighted by the defense in cross-examination. So whatever you're reading, can you continue reading it to let these people know what was said under cross-examination?
Yeah, I'll continue to read it. During cross-examination, the defense tried to discredit the claim by pointing out that the students did not include Anthony's cursing or slurs in their initial written statement. That's what you're referring to, right?
Absolutely.
But the jury ultimately found that the verbal provocation accounts were very credible and rejected the self-defense argument. They rejected it because they found they found the claims to be credible, even if it's not the case that the witness initially reported it. Who cares? They don't think that made the witness less credible because they didn't initially report it. They did report it afterwards when they gave a totality of recounting. So I don't really know how this is in any way, shape, or form inadequate defense, especially since the defense was the one that pointed this out.
Based on people that was actually in the court, okay? People that was actually in the court that I was actually speaking to, all right? It seems that a few of the witnesses' testimonies differed from their initial statements. This is a fact, but this is up to the defense to have to call out. Did the defense do a shoddy job? Was the defense lackluster? I believe that the defense really was lackluster because a few witnesses did change their initial statements. So Taz is not far off, and Andrew Wilson is going by what was said in court. So is Andrew wrong? No, he's going by what was said in court. Taz may have some, you know, he might be privy to some other knowledge, which I'm privy to some of this knowledge, that witnesses did change their testimonies on the prosecution side from their initial statements. That is a fact.
Like that the testimony was inconsistent, which is what they're supposed to do. Now,
Yeah, so how's that inadequate?
Don't interrupt me after you just sat here crying about it being interrupted.
Well, I'm just curious about the inadequacy.
Right, but don't do that though. But don't do that though. You just sat here and cried about being interrupted.
Dude, I'm just asking.
Come on, my ass. Shut up when I'm talking.
You
shut up when I'm talking.
You shut the fuck up. Fuck you.
You chipping out. You chipping out, white boy. Relax.
Now that the goats rammed each other, let's go ahead, go to uninterrupted, and then Andrew can respond. Then we go back to the ladies.
Well, I mean, because again, I just want him to understand that the point he's running from is the fact that it was dealt with, and now when I'm calling it inadequate, they're not challenging enough of these witnesses on their inconsistencies. So I know he does not want that to happen because it benefits him in terms of the outcome. But there are multiple inconsistencies. For example, another would be one saying he was pushed with one hand, another saying he was pushed with two. One saying it was a light tap, another saying it was a direct shove. Because you have these inconsistencies that were not dealt with by the defense, I am well within my intellectual reasoning to say that that's inadequate as a defense. What is he talking about?
It's really funny here because what you're saying is actually self-contradictory. It's P and not P. The defense was inadequate because they didn't point all these things out. And then it turns out they did point all these things out. The jury just didn't believe them. So how could that be the defense being inadequate? In fact, it would be the opposite. The defense is adequately making the exact same defenses that you would make based on the sworn witness testimony and the inconsistencies you see. So how's the defense being inadequate again, dude?
Because again, these arguments that we're making about that one statement, that is the only time they pointed out that inconsistency. When if you're fighting for this young man's life, you'll point out these multiple inconsistencies multiple times. And even now, when you get the chance to call witnesses, you'll call that witness up and show his inconsistency through questioning.
Are you saying that the defense attorney specifically did not under cross-examination point out these various inadequacies that you right now are pointing out? Because the matter of record that I have, at least for the first claim, they did. And I'm willing to go claim by claim. And I got a feeling the defense actually did point these things out. So again, how is it the case that it's an inadequate defense? How?
Because pointing it out is not the same as using it to get Karmelo a better sentence. Pointing it out shows now that you are identifying it. Pay attention, white dude. Pointing it out means I see it.
No sense.
I didn't. Right. I'm trying to show you. I know you're smart. You're not smart. You're white. So when I point it out, if you don't pick up on it,
one second, please. I already know this is going to escalate into something that we don't want here. I said before the show, please let's take the motherfucking racial situation going on. We're already talking about race. No need to be insulting each other in the levels of race.
About the case, but what he's not going to acknowledge is that the defense is inadequate representation is what I'm talking about. If you don't call those prosecution witnesses back up and challenge them on their inconsistencies, you're not helping Karmelo Anthony. And so while he may not think from a defense standpoint, I am. So as you have identified these multiple inconsistencies, you don't take out the time to bring those witnesses back up after you've brought out the inconsistency on cross-examination and use those moments to benefit Karmelo. That is it.
Yeah, you know, I'd have to agree with Taz on that. I think the defense dropped the ball on that. If they were able to call up some of these witnesses and challenge them on the inconsistencies, whether they flew or not while the prosecution was cooking, I think that this would have made a better look for them, you know what I mean, to be able to call out what they think differed from the initial statements to the testimony that was given at trial. Again, I believe that Karmelo Anthony, his defense team was pretty lackluster. Some say it was Mike Howard. Some people say Toby Shook was really good. You know, other people say that Mike was good, but it wasn't even that much objections going on. So I think some people saying they only seen like 2 objections. It was crazy, you know what I mean? But based on the testimony that was given, you know what I mean? So Andrew is not wrong, and Taz also is not wrong. They're both right in this situation, which is crazy, man. It might be hard to believe, but Andrew's going by the book of what happened actually in court. All right. And Taz is going by, because he may be privy to some other knowledge, but he's also going by what the defense could have used to their advantage to help Karmelo Anthony out during his trial. Now, Taz is saying it would have gotten Karmelo a better sentence. I don't know. That's always up to the jury, because the jury also determined the sentence. But I think that it would have been a better look for Karmelo if the defense called more witnesses than the few witnesses that they did call, right? And one of their witnesses that they called actually said that they believed that Karmelo was wrong, actually, and he was in the wrong. So I didn't understand why they would call a witness that would flip on them with the prosecution and say that Karmelo was actually the one in the wrong. So it's a lot of inconsistencies, you know what I mean, during this whole trial, not just with the witnesses. And I believe that the defense also dropped the ball when it comes to raising certain emotions in the court in front of the judge that could help him during or for an appeal. I think that Karmelo has an uphill battle, beating this case on appeal, maybe getting a new trial, or even some people saying that he's going to come home early. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know, you know. I think it's just a bad situation all around the board. But that defense team was not the team that Karmelo Anthony needed, man. So, you know, like I said, man, salute to all of y'all. Y'all make sure y'all get in the comments section. Y'all let me know what y'all thinking about this back and forth between Andrew Wilson and Taz the GOAT. Who do you think is right now? Do you think that Andrew Wilson's making some good points? Do you think that Taz is making some good points? What do you think about the trial? Do you agree with the sentence? Do you agree or disagree that it was a fair trial or not? What do you think Karmelo's chances on his appeal? Do you think that he gets his appeal? Do you think that he wins his appeal? Do you think that he comes home earlier than 17 years? You know, let me know. Get inside the comments section. Subscribe to OotaOnGo. Hit the notification bells and make sure that you're notified when we drop a new content. You already know the vibes. Oota, Oota, Oota. Always on go.
All my niggas from the Oota. All my niggas turn shooters. Oota, Oota. All my ops turn rappers.